Hey everybody, Parnell Woodard from FranTech. Today, super excited to bring you Brandon Cullen, the co-founder, right? Brandon, I think you're
Yeah,
co-founder, not
co-founder.
CEO,
Yep.
of MADabolic. And Brandon has a fascinating background for you guys today. I think you're going to find it very intriguing. I mentioned the co-founder, chief concept officer, and I want to come back to that and revisit what does a
Okay.
chief concept officer do of MADabolic. It's the industry's leading strength and conditioning franchise, and really his vision has transformed the brand into a thriving system really built for those who value strength, structure, and accountability. Before venturing into fitness, he had a career in professional hockey, playing in the Ontario Hockey League, the ECHL, and the AHL, for those of you that are hockey fans. Professional hockey career kind of got cut short, though, concussion. Sorry to hear that. I know it's a big deal in sports these days. And that really, but that kind of transitioned you and got you into exploring fitness and coaching, where you identified that gap in the market for structured group fitness, targeting really high achievers. And I think that sounds like an important nuance to this as we go forward. So, and you formed MADabolic with a fellow former hockey professional, Kirk. Is it Diwali? Did I
DeWall. Yeah.
Dewall? Okay. Um, Back in 2011. And as I mentioned, the brand focuses on providing a performance driven environment for individuals seeking to age athletically through strength based interval training. You've expanded to over 35 locations, plans for future growth. And you have kind of a unique approach, which includes a 52-week annual training calendar divided into four 12-week cycles, really focusing on consistency and structured progression. Um, your favorite quote, I really like this: high achievers don't follow trends, they build them. So, kind of a cool quote. Welcome, Brandon.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a nice intro. Thanks for having me. We're actually we opened our we're above 40 now, and I think within the next by the end of Q2 we should be at 50. So it's a fun time. We get a great team behind us, and it's a fun time to do what we do.
Yeah. So you come out of hockey. Obviously, you've got a fitness angle on things. How do you end up deciding you want to go into franchising with MADabolic?
Well, that kind of came naturally. I mean, when we got out of the game, fitness was a huge part of our game. That's how we kind of bonded as friends and as teammates. We both had training backgrounds that I used to do it in my summers for kind of supplement income, and just it was something I was obsessed about with my own game. So I had that career-ending concussion, and my co-founder Kirk DeWall was retiring. He already knew he was retiring, so we ended up on that same team in that final year. And it wasn't. I don't want to say it was like easy to transition into fitness as a career, but at least it made sense based on our background. But our initial goal, I mean, we really didn't know what we were doing from a franchising side of things, and we didn't even, weren't even aware it was a possibility. Our goal was to drop a location in the middle of Charlotte, North Carolina, because that's where we were living. And we thought, 10 miles north, south, east, or west, we'll put a unit. And we had enough of that kind of young, arrogant energy where we thought we could control the entire market because of what was not offered in boutique fitness. And the franchising opportunity came because I think we were doing a very good job, and people started asking, would you ever consider doing this in another market? Would you ever do a partnership? Would you ever design programs to put in within the powerhouse YMCA's in Charlotte, and stuff like that? So it naturally we looked into things of how could we grow this, and eventually we hired a franchise consulting firm out of San Diego. They spent about 6 months educating us on building out that first FDD and FA. And then from there, like any entrepreneur, you just kind of learn as you grow and you
Yeah.
get better at what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mentioned at the outset that you've got kind of a unique title in terms of the chief concept officer. How do you view that role in the organization, and what is your focus for the organization?
Yeah. So when we decided to actually scale, we took on new partners, Z Growth Partners, the private equity arm of our business. And when we started kind of like recalibrating and redesigning the system, we collectively knew that one day there's probably going to have to be a very gifted CEO in that position, which was me, and not being too tied to titles. The partner's like, well, what about chief concept officer? I'm like, damn, yeah, that's good. Let's go with that. So that's how the title came. It is a funny question when a lot of people ask me like, what do you do all day? Like, what the hell do
What do
you
you do all
do?
day?
And I always use this. We decided to scale within a franchise system. So my entire day revolves around making sure 80 to 90% of what we dreamt up over 10 years ago stays in place as we scale.
Interesting. Interesting. Um, what excites you the most about leading a franchised organization? Because it's a very different leadership role than a traditional, privately held organization that's scaling kind of organically,
Yeah, I might have to kind of reverse engineer and back into the question. One of the things that was a pretty humbling experience once we started hitting a certain level of scale was the fact that I would consider myself a good leader. I can get people to rally around a cause, or get people passionate about something. But then once we started growing, I realized like managing people wasn't my strongest ability. And there's some people that, once you see the people that have that gift, you really aspire to kind of like be more like that. I think we all, try to get better at the things where we may have some shortcomings there. So I think what's exciting about a franchise system where I sit and it complements kind of my busy brain, every day is different. So, you're working with different states, different markets, different ownership structures. Let's be honest, different core values from owner to owner to owner. So, like running a franchise system really keeps you on your toes, because a corporate structure, you can really control every decision, like right down to hiring. In a franchise system, what a lot of people don't know is like we can't tell our franchisees who they can and can't hire. We can make suggestions, but they could be like, Brandon, you're nuts. I think this person's great. And we have to allow them to do that. So, yeah, it keeps you on your toes. I think that's the best way to answer it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, in terms of technology going forward in the franchise space, where do you see franchisors really needing to improve their utilization of technology? And there's so many different places, right? Not just the personalization side, not just the customer or the client experience side, but there's a whole lot of other space in the franchising world. Where do you think they need to improve some of that?
It's difficult, right? Because you really have to focus on the brand itself and what they're selling. Um, I think a lot of concepts that you got to be delicate with this, right? But I would say that provide a non-specific average core offering. I think that level of personalization and connectivity is going to be very important to keep that glue strong. I think, we hang out in boutique fitness, but it's almost like we treat ourselves like a corporately run entity. We're always chasing excellence, and we get to deal with a different kind of consumer that seems to be, and I realize these are blanket statements before anyone jumps down my throat, right? But it seems that we deal with a more committed consumer. It seems that we deal with more of a person that is looking to belong to something that they are passionate about and they relate to, versus I want to be part of a group that sees me. Very different type of consumer, right? So our version of leveraging technology is to increase the human aspect of the business. We have great retention. We have strong conversion. But when we think of understanding a new lead before they get into your doors so you can bring the human to the lobby, I think that's important from a unit to unit conversation. Running a franchise, we do have some pretty important things that we use. We developed a learning management software during COVID. We use Wisetail, so we kind of use their platform to build out our LMS, and that helps us on ramp owners, GMs, trainers, and anything in between. We white labeled a software called ClickUp for our entire pre-opening process.
Yep, I know it well.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we have 171 steps from signing your franchise agreement to essentially opening your doors. And everyone on the team that is an expert within a certain bucket of that pre-opening phase has specific tasks and buckets that they own. And it helps us remain hyper organized on our side of things, because we all wake up in the morning with notifications saying, hey, franchisee in Austin needs you for this specific thing. Franchisee in Oklahoma City needs you for this specific thing. And then we can really focus on what they need that during that very moment of their opening process. And the final piece of software that is super important to what we do, because we're known for high level strength and conditioning for everyday people and the training component. Like, we often say, we're not here to entertain you, we're here to train you. And we built out a online training portal that has our movement database, all of our weekly workouts, all of our language that we design specific to the workouts. And that all works with the education the trainer would get in the learning management software, and them coming to be trained by us in person in Charlotte. So it's weird. We are known unit to unit, almost like as an anti-technology company. Like, when you enter our doors, phones aren't on the floor. You're not going to see screens and heart rate monitors. You're going to get trained. But on the franchising system side of things, we do rely on tech to, help us grow and streamline things very efficiently.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anybody outside of yourself, which sounds like you guys are doing a lot? Is there anybody that you think is doing tech well in the franchise space? And it doesn't even have to be the boutique side, right? It could be maybe you've seen something in a different kind of a franchise category.
Yeah, there's a couple of companies I'm watching right now, because I think what we all know is for a long time we've been able to get data for about the last 5 years, right? It's how you use it.
Yeah.
And I think now the next 5 years, we're going to see people use it very intelligently. There's a company out of Scottsdale, I think their first location, called Proof 3. I really like what I have seen on paper and how they're bringing technology to their members. And I think it's going to be one of the first kind of technology-driven boutique experiences when someone can walk in the door and it will remember their last workout and kind of take them to this next workout. That's the best way I can summarize it. Jim Crowell, who is behind this beast, I think would be a better person to speak to it. And then, what I'm really interested to see, because I think this could be done very, very well, I am very interested to see Tonal's first brick and mortar in New York, because I can almost visualize the clean lines, the branding. I can picture the bathrooms. And I feel like if they do this right in this very almost like alpha masculine but high end feel, think of like an Apple store, but if they took on blacks and grays as their, and I like their tech package. Like, I've seen it in action. I like what they do, and I have a lot of friends that use it. So those are two companies I'm keeping an eye on.
Interesting.
And I'm excited. Like, I'm not a guy that worries about competition. So I think when something like this comes, it's just better for us all.
Yeah, yeah. You know, a lot of people talk about that with AI. They're afraid that AI is going to take their jobs, and I think AI is going to really push us as humans to increase our critical thinking skills.
I
Right.
do too.
I think it's really important. And in terms of AI, obviously having a massive impact in every category of business at the moment. But um, how do you think it's shaping franchising at the franchisor level?
Similar to my last response, I think everyone on an individual basis and as a system basis is learning how to use it within their system. I mean, I can give you some like tangible examples that aren't as sexy as people want to talk about AI, but I'm a blunt person. So before I send an email, I rip it through ChatGPT and say, please rework in a warm and professional tone. And I know that sounds hilarious, but I kind of just speak how I speak. And sometimes that doesn't translate well via email. We've used it for things to speed up and organize a quarterly meeting agenda. We have taken our P&Ls from every individual franchise unit and explored dropping them into some of these systems to have them evaluate the health of the system. So like, I think and I can only speak to us, like we're playing around with what it could help with. But as of now, individual team members of mine are using it for selfish reasons. And I mean selfish in a good way, to help them be better and more efficient and all that. But we haven't found the perfect angle of how to deploy it within our entire franchise system yet.
Yeah. Do you see any challenges in helping franchisees adopt it and managing franchisee adoption? Because there's some pros and cons in letting the franchisees get too far down the path with utilizing it as well.
Yeah, we run a very kind of tight top down approach. The fact that we are not chasing the masses and we're chasing a 25 to 50-year-old high performer, we want to speak a very specific way to that type of individual. So we are crafting all the marketing language. We are crafting the social media campaigns. Obviously, we're designing all the workouts from a top down approach. So I've yet to see an AI model that makes sense for us, that we would let loose and worry about if it got into the franchise's hands. What I think, where I think though this is going to be helpful is, I think like when you have your preferred vendors, say you're working with a marketing company, they may be using an AI tool within their marketing suite, but it's going to have to come from with some guardrails, right? So like you can use it, but as long as it speaks in kind of like this language. So I feel like the vendors that you may associate yourself with, they seem to be a little further ahead of how they will use it. But a part of a franchise system, right, is you also have accountability partners that are an extension of the team. So whether that's your real estate company, whether that's your construction build out team, whether that's your marketing team, whether that's your equipment provider, or the way we design our floor plans, we can use some kind of AI tools there for operational capacity and stuff like that. But yeah, we haven't found something. I will just be straight honest. There's nothing I'm sitting on that I'm like, man, I can't wait. This is going to
Yeah.
change the game for us.
Well, and it's good. It sounds like you haven't run into any challenges with the franchisees trying to implement or utilize AI that is not architected or supported from the franchisor level.
No, and it'll happen, right? I mean, the same way that you just described that, you're always going to have people that try to bend the system a little bit, and that can be that could be from apparel down to music.
Sure, sure.
That's going to exist. So when the right AI tool for boutique fitness presents itself, and let's say we say, no, that's not good for the system, 100% some person will try something. It's just the game. It's part of the game.
You talked about franchisee onboarding and using ClickUp and white labeling ClickUp. How long have you been on ClickUp? What kind of improvements have you seen in terms of that onboarding process, be it consistency or even the efficiency or really the ramp to generating income and revenue for the new franchisee coming on board?
You know what I think's really funny is I get to sit in this humble seat and imagine or remember, I guess, what we didn't provide. You know, and you almost think like, how the hell did we do it? Now, I will say this. We, at that point, didn't have our foot on the gas, and you could spend your day on the phone hand holding and walking them through the process. But I mean, we have 3 locations opening in the next 30 days and 6 opening by the end of Q2. So we have 9 openings at all different phases of the business. And we're selling franchise units that could add to that. So like, it's no longer an option to not have a system like this. And I think directly tying it to successful openings or revenue is a difficult thing, because, you know, within a franchise system, you still have your kind of overachievers, your underachievers, and you also have those people in the middle that end up being the true backbone of the system, that chunk in the middle that does extremely well. I think it helps my corporate team members help the franchisees better. We always opened successful, whether it was with PDFs and handshakes 10 years ago, now to the supercharged technology systems that we use. So I think it just makes our team more focused, more dialed in, and more specific to what needs to be done this day, like right now and this week.
You talked earlier about using technology to kind of enhance the client experience and the customer experience, but making it very human the minute they walked in the door. What are you doing? What kind of things are you doing behind the scenes with technology to either drive them in the door or really enhance that experience, you know, from the time they walk in to the time they walk out to the next time they come back in?
Yeah. This might get a little bit long-winded, but it's best probably for me to just walk through a kind of a perfect example, right? Sure. So whether you have, we're in the middle of a switch over between our CRMs, but it doesn't matter. We use a CRM that allows us to communicate with a lead once they have purchased an intro offer, and we try to gather some information before they get into the door. And there's 3 very specific questions we use that usually draws out 90% of the information we need. And, you know, it's let's say.
Who is that, if you don't mind me asking, Brandon?
Who are we using?
Yeah.
So we use Axel when we were with MindBody, but we're actually migrating over to Walla that has it built right into the software. So it's no longer a plugin, but it's the same technology. But essentially we're asking people, like, what do they like to do for fitness? Like, what are their goals, how they heard about us, and if there's any injuries we have to be aware of. So let me just say, let's say someone from Orange Theory, we gained this information from them. Listen, I've been training at the Orange Theory down the block for 3 years. My PT has been treating me with plantar fasciitis. And he suggested incorporating more strength training and suggested you. So the way our trainers are taught to take in this information, right? You're going to know something about the Orange Theory program. I also know that if you've been there 3 years, you probably love that community. So I want to approach that delicately, right? We got to win, because a respected medical professional has said, go try these guys out. They're very, very good at this. So now when that person comes into the lobby, I could say, hey, Parnell, I hear you're joining us from Orange Theory, and you've been there 3 years, so it must be a fun group of people, right? Yeah, I love it. And honestly, like if I didn't have this plantar fasciitis, I might not consider this. I said, well, listen, we've been very successful with endurance athletes and like overuse injuries. I think getting you on a 2-day-a-week program might get you back on that treadmill quicker. And I'm not punching down, and I'm going to let the workout do the talking, and maybe she becomes a MADabolic, maybe he or she becomes a MADabolic client, or maybe not. But we're using this information to disarm them in the lobby. Then we do the things of once we get them into a warm-up, right? I will know that, Orange Theory doesn't really do strength and conditioning. It's a treadmill program with very light weights, and we're going to be a heavyweight kind of, we're going to do like real strength and conditioning. So when I start watching this person move, and maybe they don't move very well because there's not a huge coaching aspect, I know that I'm going to have a lot of special attention with that person on the floor once I put them under load. So, when I talk about the human, and I knew that was going to be long-winded, right? 3 very specific questions that are driven by technology, and you can use it. You can meet them where they are: a phone call, an email, a text message. But once I get that, you turn into a person that is in a hospitality space, and you're helping them understand that this is what I do, and that I'm here to take care of you. And the way I look at this is like, how different is that when someone walks in and they get that kind of experience versus you walk in and someone's on their cell phone behind the desk. They're like, hey, welcome, glad you're here. We start class in 10 minutes. What a difference for that consumer that could be very nervous coming into that space and bringing this level of attention and detail and care to them. So that's what I mean by using technology to give you access to being a better, to be more human.
Yeah, no, great explanation. Thank you. In this space, new member growth is largely flat, right? We've seen that for the most part. There's been a lot of focus on retention. Are there other key metrics that you think franchisors and their franchisees should be looking at?
Yeah, the game has changed dramatically in the past 5 years. My fellow franchisors always get nervous when I talk about the truth of franchising, but like the years of the Orange Theory growth that we saw 10 years ago, those are gone. These opening with 500 members day one, those things don't exist anymore. So it is more of a grind. You know what I mean? It's a difficult thing to ask. I can tell you how we look at it, and maybe that kind of answers the question. We think the business is like, our business is hard work, but it's not complicated. You can attract, convert, and retain. That's it. So if we don't got enough leads that month, that's an attraction kind of bucket. Conversion and retention, I think, is experience driven. So in the conversion phase, am I doing what I said I was going to do via my branding and my marketing? And then retention ends up being, am I still doing what I said I was going to do when you joined? And I think we do a very good job at this. And I know people have all these strategies with technology for like Hail Marys, and once clients haven't come in 30 days. And I understand and get all that. But we, in the industry, we have under 4% churn monthly, which the industry average is 9%. Average tenureship used to be 2 to 3 years, but we had a lot of openings this year. But it's still 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's what we focus on: attraction, conversion, retention. And if one of the buckets is affected, we dive in and fix that bucket.
Yeah. Interesting. Just in out of respect for time, I want to touch on one thing in security, then we'll get to wrap up.
Sure.
Security and cybersecurity, big issues. I know you've got some third-party players and you rely on the third parties and presumably their security protocols and what they have in place. But how are you managing things on your side security protocols, cybersecurity, not only at the franchisor level, but managing and informing the franchisees about that importance?
Well, lucky enough, we have a team as an extension of our private equity partners, Z Growth Partners. So it's a parent-child relationship where we do get to share some of those. They're not brand specific. You know, they work across their portfolio, and they advise, they set things up the right way. And when things present themselves, they are the people that we are able to lean on, because we are not experts there. So that's something we need to have, we need to hire, and we need to be able to rely on them to do that. But yeah, I think you have to think about that, especially we know there's going to be something very scary that happens in the next 25 to 30 years related to cybersecurity. We know it. Yeah. So it just is what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Rapid fire questions. We'll wrap up. Number one, best business book you've read recently.
My favorite business book is called Essentialism. It's more of a essentialism, subtitled The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. Is by Greg McKeown. It's not necessarily a business book only. It's just approaching life with more of a minimalistic, prioritizing what is important and forgetting about what is not. So I read it every January and over again, and it's always great. Yeah.
Great way to refocus. If you weren't in franchising, what would you be doing?
Dream job. I'd love to be in music, but
Cool.
I think I have a good ear, but I'm useless when it comes to any playing instruments or singing. But, that'd be a dream job. But, one of the things that I could see in the future could be some level of consulting on a brand building strategy. I really love the idea of solving puzzles, having a short project to define the consumer base we are going after, and then building entire strategy around that. So, I think I would love a consulting role. I don't know if I'd be great at it, but I think it would be something I would enjoy.
Interesting. Cool. One technology tool that you can't live without.
I mean, ChatGPT has been a big thing for me. I write a lot of content, and I write a lot of whether it's recording podcast or developing content. But like I said, I'm not a gifted writer. So I'm not like someone who can just sit down and pump out pages. When I decide to write an article, it can take me a long time to get everything grammatically correct. It's just not, I'm a math guy. That's how I am. But there's a creative side to me that I like developing content. So I have a couple of really unique strategies, like the way I have shifted my content that has sped up my process and now has allowed me to do more of it. So a lot of times when I am driving or go for a walk, right, I'll open my notes section with my earphones in and I rant.
Yeah.
Just rant.
Yeah.
And then when I get to my computer, I start formulating the sentences into more of a flow. And then I edit how I would edit. And then depending on where I want to put it, can you rework this in a tone for my LinkedIn audience? Do not change my words, and do not, but focus on punctuality and grammar in a professional and more empathetic tone.
Yeah.
And then it spits it out again, and then I'll re-edit it into my voice doing just that kind of process in the past, it would have been a 2-week project instead of a 2-day project. 2-day project. Yeah.
It's amazing.
So it's been great for me. Yeah.
There's a really nice tool out there called Scripe, CRIPE, where you can just talk into it and it'll write a blog post for you based off.
Really? Yeah. I mean, that sounds even better, because it sounds like that's what I'm doing, because what I like to do is think, I love when a hot topic hits the industry on a Monday, and I like thinking about it for that week. formulating an opinion, and then the following week speaking to it versus just kind of have a knee-jerk reaction to it. For instance, like when GLP-1s came quick, I was like, all right, pump the brakes, think about this, have an angle, have a position, but do it the right way.
Yeah. Favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Bottle of wine and a record.
Nice.
Yeah.
Gotcha. What kind of wine?
I prefer old world wines. So I drink a lot of Italian.
Barolo?
Barolos are my favorite, but I can't
go.
say that's exactly a nightly wine for me, but that's...
I'm with you.
I
got you.
So Barolos, funny you said that. They're my favorite. I do love, from the American wines, I do love like Pinots out of the Willamette Valley. But in short, I prefer more of a dirty, minerally driven wine than kind of like a fruit forward wine.
Gotcha. Yeah. Fair enough. Last question. If you could have lunch with any entrepreneur or business leader, who would it be?
Oh my God. You know, I know this is not, honestly, like after watching first that, The Last Dance, Michael Jordan, I know it was like controversial the way he approached the game, but if you were kind of wired like him, everything he said was like gold to me. And I understand where that was hard to hear for a lot of the audience, but I was just glued to my seat, so impressed with his level of tenacity to be the best in the world that I would love to have a cigar and a whiskey with him as he recorded that Last Dance.
Yeah, wild. Yeah, very cool. Brandon, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it, folks. Brandon Cullen, the Chief Concept Officer from MADabolic. Final parting thoughts, Brandon? Anything you want to leave our listeners with?
No, not at all. Cool. Thanks for having me. If you enjoy my style and tone, I do a lot of communicating on LinkedIn. I've kind of completely no social other than LinkedIn, and I try to keep it very professional. But I have no problem answering DMs for anyone that may have a question. That's where I like to build relationships. So at any point, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to try to help wherever you are in your journey.
Cool. Thanks again for spending some time, Brandon. Folks, Parnell Woodard, this has been Frantech. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.